Jordan here, and thank you in advance for watching this. What we're about to go into are a series of artist talks as part of a series that we had launched as our form of participation for the Fall of Freedom initiative. JTR Presents is a contemporary art museum that offers design services that helps the creative community, helps the community in general, and we seek to positively impact our community and environment through art, tech, and design. So, in relation to this initiative, Fall of Freedom, it started off with 16 artists that did a call to action about 6 weeks ago. And the call was for anybody in the arts to do something, be it in their programming, a project, something for the 22nd and 21st of November of this year, as a way for us as a creative community to push back and call out the current administration and their actions against creative institutions relating to censorship, justice, community truth, and freedom of expression. This is our community's way of saying that we will not be silenced, we will not be censored. We will still continue to fight for justice for all. We'll still continue to fight for freedom for all. And we stand by our communities, especially those that are marginalized. In addition to that, we exercise our freedom of expression. We exercise our First Amendment rights in really pushing back and holding our government accountable. And so with that said, we will be moving on, and I present to you the following artists. Wow, first of all, thank you so much for your time. It's really an honor to have this talk with you. Um, and thank you so much, Michael Edwards, for all the work that you do in the community. Ever since our friendship at SCAD, like you've already were working on like amazing things. So you are an inspiration to me. So the point of this talk is really touching on the themes of community, truth, freedom of expression, justice, and censorship, all the main themes within the Fall of Freedom movement that's currently happening as a response to our current administration in regards to the arts. I wanted to have this conversation with you specifically about community because you were working on some really cool stuff. But I want to back up a little bit because you are currently with Microsoft and then you're doing your own branding like your own brand company, Design Logic. So I think we should start there. What all goes into that? What all motivates you as a designer?
Yeah, no, so number one, thank you for having me on. Super excited to be here. Yes, from the halls of the Savannah College of Art and Design, we met and just an amazing friendship has blossomed from it. Let's see here, starting. So before I started working at Microsoft, I started my own business, not because I wanted to, but because I had to. We were under another administration back in the day that caused, recession to happen. And so when I graduated from undergrad, I kind of just started knocking on doors to ask people if they needed graphics and things of that nature. And which was really kind of cool. And it enabled me to start to think about how I viewed myself and how I viewed uh, just in general design. That design is very empathetic. Design is very human focused. And a lot of times, especially in today's AI world, we are so immersed in um, AI, and there's nothing wrong with that. We have to move the needle forward. But those inception moments of knocking on doors and asking people if they needed design, asking people what mattered most to them, asking people like what was keeping their business from, maybe not scaling, was something that brought me joy. that primary research, that end user experience. And so to me, human experience matters, and that's the mindset that I have when I'm designing, whether for brands that I've designed for in the past, for my own personal brand and how I express myself with design logic. When I write books, working on my second one right now about empathy and emotions, and it's also talking about this whole idea of how we as humans, when we came to the world, there's this thing called empathetic crying that babies do. And with that, if a baby cries, another baby cries, there's that connection, right? And so to never lose that connection. And so that's something
That's
that I
interesting.
that holds like really dear to me. That's one. Two, fun. I think creativity is fun. I think sometimes we lose the awesome nature of what you're doing. It's almost like the God work where you're creating something out of nothing. And I think as creatives, we have the unique opportunity to create some things out of nothings in our everyday lives, whether it's in our relationships, whether it's for like the things like the couch or the book or, experiences for people, that we meet in public. Every moment, every breath that we make, we're creating an experience, and those experiences should be fun. And I understand, and I'll go ahead and put that out there that everybody may not be having as much fun right now because times have changed. Uh, but we have to remember that we are still human first, uh, no matter what. And so that's something that's very important to me. And it's why I joined Microsoft as well. Uh, empowering every person on the planet to achieve more. It's about empowerment and how do we empower, and so that's something that I hold dear to. So that's a little bit about kind of the what drives my design thinking. Of course, pixel perfect, diving through user experiences, edge cases, use cases, customer journeys, all that stuff is important as well. Design systems, but at the end of the day, if we're not designing for humans and if we're not designing for brands that are servicing humans, then what are we here for? What are we
Yeah,
doing?
no, that's refreshing to hear because like it reminds me of what one of my mentors, Ramiko Carter, had mentioned. He's like, as a designer, him and Christo actually
Yeah.
said something
Yeah.
along the lines about like empathy,
Yeah.
imagination, and just have fun.
Yeah. No, and it's
Without that, eh.
yeah.
And so with that, and I kind of want to some things kind of resonated with me a little bit.
Yeah.
So community's been on my mind a lot with all
Yeah.
that's going on within the past few years, and even within my work as a curator and as administrator,
Yeah.
and a designer. And so I'm thinking one of the through lines, right? You mentioned about empathy. And
Mhm.
it sounds like that's a really strong chord there. So in your experience, what is community, and how do we build and maintain it from your perspective?
Yeah. It's funny. My dad, when I was young, he would always say, "You are your brother's keeper." I was adopted, and so me and my brother were adopted together. And so he said, "You guys have each other." So we always had this "you are your brother's keeper" mentality. And when I think of community, I think of the fact that we are our brother's keeper, that we are to remember, again, human first, right? Uh, despite where we may live, some people may have townhomes, some people may be, in a house, some people may be in an apartment. There are people who are on the streets, but we're all our brother's keeper, you know? And everything that we have is just a resource from the source. And so it's being good stewards over those experiences, in my opinion. So yeah. And when I think of community, I think about that. I also think about it takes a tribe. People are learning more than ever how much of a tribe they're going to need right now, as we're pivoting, as we're downsizing, as we're uh, thinking about ways to collaborate better, more efficient. Like it's going to take a tribe. We're not going to, in my personal opinion, separate from any business or brand or anything that I'm connected to, we're not going to make it siloed, right? Um, as much as we want our paycheck to all be able to go to Whole Foods and actually last, we're in the whole check season. And so we want to think strategically. So whether it's starting those community gardens, whether it's uh, humbling ourselves, recognizing that we can't vibe code or like build an app all by yourself, or start a company by yourself. It's going to take a tribe. Um, and being okay, not only just with the creation of your tribe, but it's also being intentional with how your tribe flows. And there's this TikTok trend, and forgive me if I get it wrong. I think it's called like hashtag group 7 or whatever. So like you have 7 things that are happening, and then you kind of like do, and your hope is that by the 7 you're like good. To me, I think that's that tribe mentality, right?
Yeah, I'll have to look that
So
one up. I'm not
yeah,
familiar
yeah,
with
yeah. I
it.
saw it the other day and I was like, okay, what's my 7? And can I blow up by number 7? I'm horrible with social media. I don't know if it's because I'm 43 and it's just like, age. Why do I have to do this?
It can
But
also be a lot sometimes.
yeah, 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 yeah. You just just social media is a lot. Um, but we'll leave it there. Especially being a
Yeah,
part of
I
the
just heard of.
LGBTQ community, I'm like, it's a
Oh,
lot.
oh, listen, it can be a lot. No, I just learned of something called like a feels music or something like that. It's like an alternative to Spotify. I'm like, I just got used to Spotify. What are we
Yep.
talking about now?
And I had spent all that money on Apple Music back in the day, so
Yes.
I have not
Oh,
converted to Spotify because I'm like, I spent all this money and I am not giving up these purchases.
listen, I'm still bitter about Zune. Like,
Uh, let's not.
like Zune music. Oh, but I digress.
Next topic.
Right. So,
um, yeah, go ahead.
but no, yeah, yeah. Going back to the idea about community. And one of the things I've been thinking about and what I've been hearing a lot is like resistance, right? And then I think about resistance in the context of even just simply surviving the systems that are harming a community. Like what we're going through with food stamps right now. There's some friends in
Yeah, yeah,
Greensboro that are starting like a mutual aid system to help
yep,
folks that don't have food, right?
I like that.
And I'm actually very interested in talking to you about stuff like that
Okay.
because I think from a pragmatic sense,
Mhm.
we have these big ideals of communities helping in different ways or having support systems that kick in whenever government or someone else can't support. And it's a nice dream, but like as far as pragmatics, how do you make that work? And the one thing that I was intrigued by you was the Pittsburgh Yards
Yep.
project.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And yeah, there was just a lot going on. I'd imagine because you're working with shareholders, you're working with the residents there, you're working with investors, you're working with, I think like Atlanta Beltline got involved.
Yeah.
And so I remember you writing something about, again, the deep human connections
Mhm.
and having a shared vision. And so what
Yeah,
was that like? Can we zoom in on that?
yeah, I can. Kind of going back to this idea. So when I was running my company solely with my team of 6 people, and we had this opportunity as Atlanta Beltline being one of the largest gentrification projects that happened in Atlanta, and just one of the largest because it's an experience that goes around the whole city and not part. I had this opportunity from my thesis at SCAD, which just so happened to be about gentrification, and the things that it does to not just like African Americans historically, but to people in general, and the feelings and the emotions and the loss and the things that happen during gentrification that a lot of people don't think about. Yes, we have our Starbucks. Yes, we have our curated experiences, but the culture and all the aspects of that culture a lot of times are wiped away. So I had an opportunity to connect with the Annie Casey Foundation. Shout out to them. And they had a $26 million vision that was a land that was purchased along the Pittsburgh community. And Pittsburgh is unique. So you have in Atlanta, you have like the whole under 20, and you have like Mechanicsville, then you have Pittsburgh. And so Norfolk Southern kind of had like on the Mechanicsville side, and then of course you had Pittsburgh Yards, and it's very historic. You know, they were the first community in Atlanta that fought the Ku Klux Klan and won. They were the first community in Atlanta that was situated in a position to be very thriving for the community itself. Um,
Wow.
Oh yeah, there's history. We're going to go down the rabbit hole real quick. And
Please.
so to get to your question. And so then when people's land were and homes were threatened to be purchased because it was becoming too black or too brown, the the people who were working at the AUC, Spelman, Morehouse, Clark Atlanta, etc., the professors, the administrators, etc., they bought up all the houses to maintain its blackness in the community. So it's historically black. And so when we got hired, the firm, along with other firms and other contractors, any Casey Foundation wanted to preserve the culture, but they wanted to do it in a way that was graceful because of the history. And so everybody who built all of Pittsburgh Yards, the whole experience was black. Contractors, builders, designers, landscape artists, managed all black. But while that's great, yay, what wasn't great was the feeling of the community. Because when you're watching your city get gentrified and statistically being deblacked in a sense. And there are articles and there are billboards and there are things outside of this conversation that everybody can go look up about what the Atlanta Beltline did, right? So I didn't want to, as a designer, forget, like, I'm gonna come in here and make it pretty. Or like, ooh, I got a nice check, so let's just wee. I didn't want to be that guy. And a lot of times, as
Right.
designers, we have our vision, we have what it is that we want, we have what we're thinking, what we're seeing. But good designers can put that aside for your stakeholder, for your end user. And a lot of times, as business owners, and this is like maybe a little pin drop for the business owners, it's not about your brand, it's about what your brand is to the end users that are consuming it. And so, with that mindset, as people were talking, one of the biggest fears was is that they were not going to be able to afford to be able to participate, that the designs weren't going to be reflective of like them. They were like, hey, are y'all gonna fix our roads while y'all over here building this big old building? Can we get the roads fixed? you know, when we started the meetings, it was predominantly black, but because of gentrification, white people started coming in, so the black people felt like maybe their voices weren't going to be heard. The historian there, when we were talking about like what inspires you as a community, the first thing from a design perspective, and they said, hey, we were the first community to fight the Ku Klux Klan, and we won. Design around that. And I'm sitting here as like the the head of design for the whole thing, and I'm like, whoa, this is going to be real interesting. And
I
graciously,
bet. Yeah.
graciously, because of my past of being like in the church and stuff like that, again, I understand I am my brother's keeper. And so I had to take a step back and say, okay, if we were to like break this down, number one, we're not coming here to take away from, we're coming here to add to. Number two, I heard you, but I'll bring back up how I heard you when it's time to do what design does best. And I'll bring that up in a second. And then the last thing that I just wanted to do is like the Beltline is beautiful. And if anybody comes to Atlanta and you start going around the Beltline, you'll see the power of what it's doing from connecting different communities, which was Ryan Gravel's, biggest initiative. Uh, Mayor Andre Dickens, I would say, is fulfilling that dream by making and pushing for more affordable housing, again, to help the community. But I think what was really unique about the experience is that when designing for it, we took a step all the way back and said, okay, what's your favorite color as a community? What, like, do you know what a font is? Yes, got it. Okay. But what font do you like the most. You know, like when
That
you
must
think
have been
of stuff,
fascinating.
huh?
That must have been fascinating to have like
Yeah,
a
oh yeah, yeah,
collective
yeah.
conversation around
Oh
that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Because in the process of having that conversation, we would hear things like, "Why can't we just have the elementary school down the street design it?" Oh, this community has a story. This community has a history. And what I didn't want as a designer is to do what gentrification does and did. It goes through, it says this is bad, then it paints a different picture to justify the means and why they're going to wipe clean. Historically, that's gentrification. From the Indians all the way till now. And so I said, all the
Right.
communities, for the most part, that the Beltline touched were Black communities, where people own their homes, but they were taxed out of it. But when I had a chance, which was a blessing, to be able to bring about community change, right? I said, how can we keep the culture? So they had this building that they built, and they were like, we're gonna tear it down. When we think about tearing it down, I was like, no, build around it. So if you go to Pittsburgh Yards, you see the original structure that this community had built, and it's still there because we built around it.
Oh,
Um,
that's beautiful. Yeah.
uh, and again, looking at how we built it, then we said, okay, like there's artwork that they had, and to some people, it may have been like, what is that? But for the creatives in the room, we were like, how do we preserve it? And so it was a whole day where we was like it was a day where the artwork had to be removed to be like placed in there. And when you go in the building to the left or no, to the right, you see this artwork that has been like time capsuled. This was here. And it's outside of the art gallery that's built inside of Pittsburgh Yards, which is like an African American art gallery, whatever, whatever. It's pretty dope. Not whatever, whatever to the art gallery, but I'm just saying like whatever, whatever.
I'll have to check it
To
out.
big space. Yeah, it's really nice. Um, and again, when we think about community, I'm thinking about the complexity. And when we think about community, and where I'm kind of trying to articulate, and hopefully it's coming across, is you did bring up SNAP benefits and stuff like that. But when I was at this event at College of Art and Design, we talked about something called wicked problems. Taking a community's history and preserving it so it doesn't get whitewashed, and or there so that it doesn't feel like the people are being robbed of their history or experience, or when you're going through the areas that are becoming now white, which is nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that, with people moving in. That's not my stance. But you do want to feel like people can see themselves and find themselves
Right.
and remember themselves, right? And I felt like it was my job to tackle that wicked problem for the community. And so when we designed the logo, we had the winning logo in month 3, but we went around for 18 months redesigning, designing, picking out plants and colors and what the textures and what the possible building. We went with the community through the process. Every Wednesday, I would go and sit in the community meetings. And we went, when we first started out, it was maybe like 20 people. But by the time we were done with the community engagement, we had about 100 with little pods where people were making decisions. We'd send out mailers for them to make decisions along the way with us. So nothing was done without the community having a say. And to me, not for my like future political plug, that is how you build community. Like
Yeah.
you put people in a place where they have a voice. And
Right.
as a leader, I put myself in designer, I put myself in the community to hear empathy, to feel empathy, to see empathy, right? So that when I made my decision and said, this is the color, these are the colors, this is what it should look. It was stamped with approval. So it was just yes, 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 yes. It wasn't, well, maybe. Well, back in my day, we didn't have all that. We didn't have all that. We didn't have to worry about all that
Good.
back in my day. Because the back in my
Perfect.
day people they were part of the conversation. And
From the start.
from the start. And what I think is cool about this historically is when you think about community development and building, stuff like that, those decisions are normally made when people of lower class are at work because they can't get off to make those decisions. So to have $26 million vision and have the decisions being made at a time that was conducive for the people who lived in the community so they could have a voice, to me, is a win. Because I know every
Absolutely.
time I go past that building that has the branding and the design influence that I brought to that space, I also know that this was built with the community in mind, which was the heart of, again, the community wanted to be heard, seen, felt. Annie Casey wanted to ensure that the community was heard, seen, felt. The builders wanted to ensure that see, everything was, and I think that's how you build community. And I think, like, as creatives, if we were to bring it back to the design world, we forget, I think, sometimes because we have our $100,000 jobs and we have our, I work in tech mentalities, which are great. Kudos to all of our achievements. But we're here to solve wicked problems. That's what our schools taught us. And that's what our cohorts and our, 10-week courses and UX design and all these things. And sometimes I'm like, is me picking, am I really solving wicked problems or am I solving iterations? Both good.
Now that's interesting. Yeah.
Like, apps are
Well,
going
they're
to
both.
always change, and we need those designs and we need those inspirations and we need those iterations. But are we solving wicked problems? So now we come back to Snap. I think if we had the same heart that was had from the leadership from Pittsburgh Yards, then we would also have that same expression in the lives of the people who are being affected by SNAP. And so it takes hearing, seeing, listening, immersing yourself in. You don't know how it feels to be homeless unless you were what? Homeless. You don't know how it feels
That.
to not be like hungry unless you're hungry. You don't know what it means to, it's like if you, I mean, I don't know what it means to be divorced if I ain't been divorced. Don't know. So again, I think that a lot of times people forget that. And I think we're so busy and our busyness has made us forget that we are our brother's keeper and that we are here to build community through empathy. And so yeah. I feel like my hair's all over the place, but it's
No, you're fine. You're fine. This, gosh, there's a lot of good stuff to kind of like go from here because one of the big takeaways I'm getting from this conversation is like nothing really exists in a vacuum. We're all kind of intimately connected in ways we
are.
may not necessarily notice.
Yeah.
With the one paycheck away might
Uh,
end up the person that you see on the street, right?
right.
But also I'm loving this sort of reiteration of the same message of like, I am my brother's keeper. Like that's the sort of cornerstone here. I also am interested about, it sounds like you're incorporating the agile approach into this. The one of the takeaways I understood about agile was that ideally you would want to have the people, everyone that's going to be involved or impacted by whatever you're designing, to
Yeah.
be at the table to discuss the things anyway, which makes sense. Like you'd
Yeah.
want to have your target audience, the clientele that to articulate their needs. You're going to want to have your product design team with their expertise. You're going to want to have the shareholders so they can put in their business aspect of it.
Yeah.
And then you amalgamate that into a product. And I forgot to mention, like, yeah, you're a product designer at Microsoft. So this all
Yeah.
sounds familiar. So I'm very intrigued that you're applying that not just to your day job, but also to your passion projects, your community. And actually, not even passion projects. That I rephrased that.
No, I would say that it was a project to pay bills, but it was also a deep-hearted passion. It's kind of funny. Yeah, it was both. It was both. It was definitely both. It was definitely
Okay.
both. But continue.
Yeah.
Continue. It was definitely
Meaning,
both.
no, it's good, good. Yeah, like meaningful work
Yes.
is what I was
Yes.
getting at. And so it's funny, you covered some of the other questions I was going to ask because I imagine, and this is kind of expanding outward a little bit more about how can aside from protests and donating, because not everybody has it like that, and it's not always
Oh, we
safe to
get it.
protest, right? Like, but what other ways can creatives participate in social changes? And I think you already touched on some of it. A
Well,
lot of it's being in community, but yes, what are your thoughts?
it's funny. Back in my church days, no offense to anyone who doesn't go to church. Uh, but back in my church days, I remember uh a mentor of mine said, everybody wants a title connected to their human name, but it would be nice if everybody could just be an example of a good human being, right?
Mm,
And I think we're so busy trying to get titles to elevate ourselves and to validate ourselves. Um, I'm an entry level designer. Now I want to be a senior designer. Now I want to be a director of just titles. But in that title, as designers, are we having character when we're engaging with our customers? And the people in the community? Does our work reflect, right? Um, the life that we live ourselves, right? Examples. Like if we're going to protest about food, when's the last time you gave $1? When's the last time you just went to a food bank who has a system in place, right, to do the work? Um, and one thing I like about Microsoft is we have this give month. And so it's like, hey, you guys are getting paid, but hey, can you guys give back too? Right? It's a part of our company like culture to give, right? Not just take, but
that's
to give.
brilliant.
And so I look at like, if we're looking at like this minimal steps. When I get paid, I put $20 of ones in my car. So when I go on the block and I see somebody, here's $1. It's not, oh my God, they asking for money. No, here's $1. Right? Example. Uh, when I, go walking, and I see like trash on the ground, I'm like, ooh, this is a nasty ass neighborhood. No, let's pick it up because it's what I can do it. It's within my power. And so I don't think
Right.
everything has to be connected to money, but I do think that we should again take those pregnant pauses and like really think like some of this stuff could be definitely like healed through just people like doing their job as a human of being a good example. Just be an example of a human being and the titles will come. If you're small long enough, you will be big soon enough by being a good example of a human being. That's my motto in life when it comes to how I operate. I got it on my bathroom window. Be small long enough and you'll be big soon enough. Just be an example of a good human being. Every day
You
I
know
see
that
that when I wake up.
that's refreshing because like with other conversations I'm having with other artists and just with other people in general, there's one thing that comes to mind that, it does not have to advocate for people or advocate for whatever change you want. It does not have to be massive. It can be something very simple. And I think that is a nice reminder. Like, even though it's a very small thing, it still matters. And I think that should not be lost in the conversation either.
Agreed.
Um,
Yes. All right.
yeah.
Chapstick break.
Yeah, fair enough.
I'm a nut for those of you guys who don't know me. Trust me. Like I'm Jordan knows I am a real person. So I'm like,
Oh
well,
my
listen, Ashley, I need
gosh.
to put on some lotion.
Oh my God. The best part is that you're not even a Leo and you're giving Leo vibes all the way.
I am definitely a Pisces. Hello.
Oh my gosh. No, it's totally fine.
Probably why I'm talking about empathy and emotions and all the soft, fluffy stuff. But yes,
Listen,
need it.
well, you know me. You are always accepted in this space as you are. Chappie or
Yeah.
not. But I will say you are inspiring me to also probably do better. I will go moisturize after.
Oh my
So
God, hilarious. I was like, he's about to go give money. I'm like, oh, he's like, no, I'm about to moisturize. Motherfucker, I can't give out. I can't go give ashy.
no, 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 you know me.
That's funny.
Oh
That's
my goodness.
hilarious.
But so there's one other thing I want to like what bring
Yeah.
in because like talk about holding space, right?
You got me for
So
20 minutes. Let's go.
oh yeah, 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 yeah. We
Let's
almost
go.
done. I won't hold
Chop
you for
it
too
up.
long. But, this idea of holding space for others, for yourself, for each other,
Yeah.
I think that's the power that art and design has. Well, the
Mhm.
arts. I feel like design is unique. Like, I see art and design as fraternal twins. Like, they're close, but there's still some differences.
Yeah.
And so, like, my next question is like, how do we amplify the role of art and design in the fight for freedom and the changes that we see? Because I think art holds
Ah,
the space for the conversation, but I
yeah.
feel like design institutes the action. That's just my
Yeah, no,
hypothesis.
I think you're right. I don't think I know you're right. They are definitely two twins born at the same time. Uh, and people gravitate towards one or the other. There's this thing that I love, uh, and it's art. And when I was young, I didn't like it. I was like, "Ooh, this is horrible. Oh, why'd they do that?" But as I get older, I'm like, "I love it." And it's graffiti. I love graffiti. I love, 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 love. If I could like take this column wall back here and like make it a whole graffiti thing or whatever, I would. I might do that.
As long as
Um,
you paint it over when you move
as
out, you'll
long as
be
I
all
paint it
right.
back so I won't get that fee. But one thing I liked about graffiti, I feel like it's the most grassroots way of your voice getting out there. Now, I'm not promoting you guys to go paint everything and then get, a ticket. But what I am saying is that graffiti holds a special place in my heart because to me, historically, art encapsulates the time of the human expression. We know what's going on in Egypt from the hieroglyphics art. We understand, right, that
Yeah.
the African expression in Ethiopia, right, of how they flow both naturally and spiritually, and the food that they make, it's an art to that. And that same art is encapsulated, right, in their cultural expression. And then when you go over the Mediterranean and you get into, Italy and France and all these other great places, and I went to Vienna and last year, Austria, and then Germany, and you just see art that encapsulates time, whether it's through the architecture, you know how it goes. And so,
Yeah.
if we're going to fight for freedom, and if we're going to tell a story, we need to make sure our art is telling the story and not telling the story from the standpoint of like it's too curated, right?
I think I get it.
Because
Yeah.
certain parties want to keep their art that's offensive up.
Right.
But we also need to tell art that tells about who we are and what we're happy what's happening. You can't gentrify everything. Art can't be gentrified. The human expression has to express, you know.
Right.
I think
And it
social
will
media
find a way.
right. Social media, I think, is becoming an art because uh people are having the ability to just express without this, you know, weight over their head of how, right? Kind of going back to AI is causing people to create in ways because as AI is taking away jobs, people are having to figure out what they want to do. I mean, it's reality. And people are
Yeah.
becoming more expressive, which is great. And so I think humans should like be okay with expressing the reality of where we're at as human beings. Don't shy away from that. Don't shy away from that. Like, write about how you feel not receiving your SNAP benefits. Write about how you feel like losing your house because your job took you off. Write about how you feel maybe the church didn't listen to you when you said you needed help because they have to pay for a building fund. Art, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Absolutely.
paint that picture. I remember when COVID happened, child. I went to Barnes Nobles, bought some books, ripped up the book, and started just doing stuff. And now it's hanging up in Microsoft. And every time I pass it, I'm like, oh God, they don't know I was crashing out. I was totally crashing out when I made this.
Right. Right.
This is for the crash out
Listen.
people. Every time you guys walk people by that and point to it, just say he was crashing out. Um,
Right.
but
We all have
I,
that.
yeah, but I think it's like art shouldn't be like so controlled, you know? Now, if we flip over to design, I mean, again, art being expression, design being action, a verb, right? Um,
Yeah.
problem being solved. So I look at
Right.
design as problem solving, storytelling. Both do the same, but in a different way. And so I look at the business of design and the design of business. And so if designers and if creatives were to design experiences for businesses and or for their communities, then I would also then suggest that we design these like solve these problems, I mean, with those wicked problems in mind. It's the same thing with art. If art is encapsulating the time, then design should be solving the problems of those times too. So we shouldn't just leave it like as oh my God, we didn't get SNAP benefits. It should be, we didn't get SNAP benefits, but here's how we designed a system that we got a copyright for, that we pitched to our local officials to get something done. So now we have both sides of the story, not only the problem, but the set yet solution, right?
Right.
Uh, Voting is a thing, something that I'm working on, shameless plug. But in
Right.
SCAG,
Oh,
I
nice.
yeah. So if we were to go back to my thesis of how I got the Pittsburgh Yard project, it's actually because I got a double master's, and one was in advertising, the company I wanted to create, and then the other one was in design management, which was the problems I wanted to solve. And one of the things that I did my thesis on was third space voting, and I got a copyright for it. And what that suggests is that voting places are normally in churches or community centers, and voting normally happens during times where people cannot come. So a lot of the major decisions that are made for you and about where you live and how you interact are made when you're at work. But I said, hey, what if we created an experience, or me, where uh people could vote in third spaces. So like for instance, in the foyer of your grocery store, or in the foyer of those churches, or in the foyer of your schools, as you're living your life, if there are community things that are happening, that you could vote in those spaces and your vote counted and it mattered.
Brilliant.
So you're not having to disrupt your life. It just voting becomes a part of your life in the places that you are versus having to
Even
go to a church or go to whatever, you
yeah,
know?
like even in your place of business or place of work, right? Like having a voting spot in the coffee room
And
for folks
so
to,
like
yeah.
literally right now, kind of funny, I was just talking with some engineers and uh about like starting to actually code out the experience. We got the copyright, I got the copyright, and so it's a thing. For anybody who creates these theses, go get it copywritten, because those are your ideas, right? Um, and but it's again solving those problems. It's like we have a voting issue. I didn't think about how much of a voting issue we had until I thought about the issue of gentrification. My project was dealing with gentrification, but the solution was the voting, right? And so I just think that design should be able to do that too. And so we have to like kind of get away from, in my personal opinion, just trying to design apps and like stuff like that. We should get to the point of like designing experiences that matter to people. And not every experience is a tangible. There's a book. Forgive me if the author ever hears this and I butchered your book, but I think it's called No Interface is the Best Interface. When we can get to the point where we're starting to think about experiences outside of an interface, and we start to think, okay, what could this experience be? And if an interface becomes an aspect of the solution, great, you know? And so yeah, I think that's how design and art can start to, one should encapsulate, one should solve, but both kind of doing the same.
Right. No, that's brilliantly said. And so the last questions I really
Hey.
have is about, sorry?
Oh, I was just saying, hey, like, yay.
Oh, yeah. So the last, yeah, fair. The last two questions I have in my mind is one of about accountability and one about access and privilege.
Okay.
So
Oh,
with that idea, right? And I feel
oh,
like those are your favorite topics
well,
from
I
our
know, right?
casual conversations, right?
Yeah.
So, and what I appreciate about you is like there is a strong focus on that accountability part, I believe. And so, with that said, what can be the personal, this is kind of a two-part. So, what can be a personal or even political implication of the things that we creators make? And then what do you think is the responsibility of that creative, assuming we have any?
Okay, repeat the question one more time. Just want to make sure I get it.
Sure. So, what can the implications be they personal or political, that comes from the things that we create? And then what do you think is the responsibility of creatives?
Mm, I don't know if I'm understanding the first part of the question, but
Like, what? That's fair. The first
put it
part of the
on real.
question,
So everybody's like, he can understand that. That's all right if you
no,
don't.
no, we're here. We're here. Um,
Uh-huh.
no, and that's fair. I'm also trying to think of the core of what I'm trying to ask.
Hmm.
I guess from your perspective,
Uh-huh.
what can be the outcomes that come from the things that whether artists or designers create? Maybe we can
Oh,
focus on
I
that.
got it. Sorry, my little ADHD brain, sometimes.
Friend,
So
same deal.
like, in my opinion, because I'm writing about it right now, it's experiences, better human experiences. Um, my mind can go very dark, not for bad reasons, but like just dark looking at the trajectory of how we are flowing and operating as humans. And and it's like it's almost a big blessing about to bust into the world because I think with AI, humans are gonna lose their jobs, unfortunately. Um, we just look at the statistics and what's happening in the workforce today. But it's the first time that a human will kind of be in the same position as like a dog or a cat. What do you do? Because you got something else doing your job. And so I look at creatives hopefully thinking more and starting to create around AI. And here we go. Horse and buggy was a thing. And then the automobile came around. And then people had to create around what that experience of the automobile would be.
Right. Instead of
And
raising horses, you learn how to work an engine.
yeah, exactly. And so I look at AI and I'm saying, okay, if it's here, then I think it's the creative's responsibility. Left brain, right brain. I think it's the right brain people's responsibility to start whipping up stuff like, let's go. We can do this. What about this? What about this? What about this? What about this? What about that? That's where we should be at right now. It shouldn't be left up like, I know a lot of people are like, oh, you can make millions with AI. That's great. Clap your hand. But we need to solve problems too.
That part.
Right? Um, and I think creatives, if we lock in, I think that's the new term, right? Or
Yeah.
rap song, take me through there. If we go through there, if we go through that place, we'll start to find ourselves creating again. And when I look at what I learned from SCAD, in a class called the History of Innovation, innovation is doing what's never been done. Iteration is just, what we see a lot of companies doing when you get those updates on your, technology. And I think if creatives lock in and really push the needle with their thinking, really embrace the all over the placeness that we all have, uh, then we will start to see a lot of these problems just dissipate because we have technology doing the repetitive stuff. So then what if, since that's where they want to go, let them go there. But we'll use our creative energy to actually solve problems, those wicked problems, and really start to present like, hey, I noticed that this didn't get done. Well, here's some solutions that make this never happen again. Or, hey, I noticed that da, 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 da. If we can lock into that energy, dude, the future is very bright. Future is very bright and
And I
lucrative for those of you who want to think about money.
that part. So okay, so I know we're almost at time, but I do want to ask this last question. I feel like it's going to be a short one.
So what do I do outside of work? I like to play with Legos. I like to go on dates. I'm kidding.
Listen, no, so the last question, and it's the last deep one that I'll torture
Okay.
you with,
Yeah.
is are we obligated to leverage our access and privilege to advocate for these changes? If so, how? If not, why?
Uh yes, we are. I mean, like, how brutally honest do I want to be? Ooh.
Listen,
If I
one
were
of the
in a
themes is
tight place,
censorship, so we're
right?
against censorship here.
If I were in a tight place and I needed help from a friend, then I would hope that my friend would help, right? It's they're not obligated to help. I would just hope that they would. Um, I downsized because I looked at the trajectory of our economy and what's happening. And instead of living on the 23rd floor, now I live on the second floor. And I face the dog park and the parking deck. And yes, my face looks like that because that's how I feel. However, the long game is it frees up money and it allows me to save, but it also allows me to help. And so I'm already starting to think of ways that I can help a little bit more because I'll have extra cash to not only save, but then also help. So whereas I couldn't give to the food bank maybe a lot fiscally, I can give a little bit more. So I think that if we're stewards over the resources that we have from the source, then and we pay attention to our decisions and how we operate, then hopefully, if you have a good heart, not saying that everybody, if you have a good heart, um, it won't feel like an obligation. It will feel like an issue of life that I am here to help solve for, you know? And that's hopefully what I'm doing, and it's hopefully what uh people around me are doing. And it's what I know you're doing, you know? We don't want to feel like we're in the we don't want to feel like we're at the end of our rope all the time. And I heard a famous person the other day talk about all the layoffs. And when I rounded up all the numbers, it was almost close to like another set of like 400, 500,000 layoffs happening. And one thing he said is we have to stop being so siloed and we got to get together and we got to do stuff, right? Um, and so what does that mean? I don't know how to garden, but I'm going to try to start a garden. I'm going to tell my friends, hey guys, like if you need some squash, don't know how it's going to taste, not FDA approved, but you can get some.
Right? Something better than nothing, right?
Yeah, no chemicals. So hey,
That
that part,
part.
that
But
part.
also
Since
that
we're not censored, since we're not censored.
right, but also I think that goes into kind of what you're talking about, right? Like constantly solving the wicked problems.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Like it's important, dude. Like after you get to a place and yeah, you make money, you're still sitting with that same thought as a creative, at least in my perspective. What am I here for? What am I supposed to be doing? Am I doing enough? Like, oh, you're designing for one of the largest companies on earth, but am I doing enough? Is that really it? Is this more? Is there something else? Right?
Right. And so that through line of being my brother's keeper, being a good steward, and like any little bit helps. And
Yeah.
so I think that's kind of the main focus, the main takeaways I'm getting from a lot of this. And then also making sure everyone has a seat at the table from the start. At
Yes.
any point and then work together through it. And then also solve the wicked problems. And
Yeah.
I think even what you were just saying with the community garden, right? Like that then opens up more questions for new infrastructures, new changes. Like, how do you make it FDA approved from your local
Like
community
it's
garden?
very it's and it's to your point. Like I'm sitting here thinking, like, I live in an apartment. I don't have land. So how does a person in an apartment create a sustainable lifestyle? How does a person in apartment living create a garden to be able to have communal, whatever? And I know there are probably 1,000 people on YouTube who are doing that stuff, and I don't know how to do that. Something I'm starting to do. So it's like still going through that process. Yes, it's important. It's important. Yay.
Thank you so very much for this. You left with a lot of food for thought, as you always do when we hang out. So I really appreciate that.
So it's like all the randomness in my brain just spewing out at one time. And then I'll leave the conversation like, oh my God, I was all over the place.
No, I think it was well succinct. I mean, again, I think people watching this, I hopefully they'll have something to take away with this. You're already giving me ideas about ways to, again, calls to actions to even ask for folks that do see this of what can be done so we can continue to move forward. And
100%.
yeah, so thank you so much for your time, and I really appreciate this.
No, thank you as well. And I have to come to North Carolina, or like I want to take a trip or something one day. And I said I need to visit you, so I need to do better. Better for
We'll make a plan for that. All right. In the meantime,
Thank you so much for watching. That was such a fun conversation. Before we go, I want to update you on a few things. First of all, JTR Presents just launched an artist resource map. This map is intended to centralize information regarding the resources. That can be equipment, venue spaces, exhibition spaces, residency programs, or other funding for artists to continue their creative practice and for our voices to still be heard and our stories to still be told. Secondly, there are other resources relating to voting. Your representation and your voice does matter, especially in the upcoming elections. You can find more information somewhere around this video. It's probably at the bottom in the description, but please, please, please get out and vote and make sure you're represented. Third, please donate to your local artist organizations or any art organizations that resonate with you. A lot of times us artists and creatives rely on organizations like the National Endowment of the Arts or our regional or art council that often offer funding for our programs or funding for programs for other organizations or offer funding for us artists to continue our work through residencies or just giving us the money directly. So donate to those institutions so they can continue to empower us to do the work that we're doing. And then lastly, I just want to let you know that your life, your voice, and your money matter, and they make a big difference, even if it's something small. Thank you again. Hope to see you soon.